How do you respond to tell us an interesting fact about you? I told my wife when she has our baby I'm wearing a fisherman's vest to the hospital to steal as much as I can get out of there. Might even take the whole charade farther by bringing in a rod and a tackle box like, oh I was just fishing and look at me in a rush I brought my stuff in. Alcohol wipes, medical tape, and then my god the extra supplies they leave for the baby like swaddles, diapers, or sometimes clothes. Outlast kid cost $20,000 so fuck him. Might just walk out with an ultrasound machine. I can't blow air out of my eyes, but water goes I'm assuming through my eyes and into the back of my throat when I shower. Nobody believed me, until one day I was rinsing out purple hair dye and after feeling the water go into my throat, I spit it out and it was purple. I don't know why it happens. My eyes are closed when my head is under the water but I guess not closed enough. Between 2014 and 2017 I died 4 times after my bowel blew up and poisoned me. Edit. Didn't expect to be asked more about it, etc. So a quick explanation. My bowel ruptured and all my waste had leaked into body and sat there for a few weeks slowly poisoning me. Had a few emergency operations and it was during these that they lost me 4 times and I had no heartbeat but each time they got me back. I don't recall any weird experiences here I'm afraid. Lol. My oldest didn't really put stuff in her mouth. One day I was standing in the kitchen talking to my dad, at his house, and it came up. The words had just come out of my mouth. She really doesn't put stuff in her mouth. When my niece comes running in, Grandpa, she put marbles in her mouth. She was also a rambunctious child. Smile. Did you also sleep very little? Oh my gosh, she would go to sleep at 11 p.m. starting at like 8 months and wake up when the sun came up. Then she wouldn't nap unless she was buckled in the car. Needless to say, I ran on coffee and tea for the first 2 years of her life. I have the widest hearing spectrum 2 doctors have ever analyzed. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I can hear both below and above regular human spectrum. Both frequency and decibels. Examples, I sense, it's not precisely hearing, those things you put in the outlets to keep mosquitoes away. I hear very clearly bats ultrasounds. I can pick up noises at a big distance. For example, when I'm hiking, I am often the first to hear horses or other animals far away, or groups of people coming my way. It's not a superpower, it's often annoying actually, but still. I used to think I had a problem with my hearing because it was frequently difficult for me to understand what people were saying. During freshman orientation for college, they gave us a test for speech impediments. I have a slight lisp that I absolutely hate. Since it was the speech and hearing department doing this, I asked about a hearing test. They said to come by sometime and they'd test me, just to give the grad students a run on the equipment. I showed up one day and got put through a series of hearing tests. When I was done, they told me that I had the best hearing they'd ever tested. I could hear sounds as quiet as 8 decibels, which is like a very soft whisper. The reason that I have trouble understanding people, they theorized, is that I'm picking up way more background noise and higher frequencies than other people, and my brain can't filter it all out. Apparently, I hear too well for my own good. I do have the advantage of being able to get around really well in total darkness. It's almost like echolocation, or Daredevil's radar sense. I didn't learn to drive until I was 40. I am a foreigner, but I live in US and when I was 41, basically a year ago, I got my first car, so I drove it. Then I realized the gas is almost out. I stopped at the gas station and new problem arise. I had no idea how to fill a gas. I was too embarrassed to ask anyone, so I used YouTube on how to fill gas. So I did. Then I just keep pressing it and the gas came out and spilled everywhere. I still Google or use YouTube on how to fill air on the tire as well. The weird thing is, I love driving Smile. And here you can see a clear example of our highly unsafe work environment. This video shows you that in an enclosure for an animal known for being able to jump, on average, 16 feet in the air, The distance from the ground to the railing is only a few feet higher than that young boy, roughly about 7 to 8 feet. We honestly don't know why those tigers have never escaped that enclosure, and as shown, it's almost laughably easy for a guest to fall into the enclosure. When I was younger I had a lazy eye. Some hotshot doctor fresh out of med school thought he could fix it in his own way. 6 surgeries later and I can only see out of one eye at a time. Left eye is nearsighted and right is far. I have no depth perception. My lazy eye is still there, but better and hardly noticeable unless I stare at a point for a while, so guess he accomplished his goal. And I can't see in 3D, only 2D. Also my vision went from 480p to 144p, so I need glasses which could stop a 50 caliber bullet, and even then it only bumps my vision up to 720p. I'm dancing on the line of being some guy with glasses and some guy with a cane and a dog. I learned to read as 3 years old, and by 3rd grade, I was testing beyond 12th grade in reading comprehension and language skills. By 8th grade I had reading speed in the top 1% of the population, 1,000 words per minute with 85% or better comprehension. The downside, my mathematics skills utterly sucked because I read so fast I would jumble all the numbers and signs into a confusing mess. Thank God for spreadsheets. I was asked this as an icebreaker at a training course. I struggled to think of anything interesting. Later, I was heading home after work when I passed the crowd gathered round a car at the side of a country road. I'm a first aider, so I stopped and asked if I could help. Turns out the guy on the ground beside the car was a drug addict, unconscious and struggling to breathe. He also had a knife, which had been chucked in the field before I arrived. I sat at his head, trying to keep his airway open. It didn't work and I ended up giving mouth-to-mouth for a while. I think I moved a blockage and he resumed breathing. The ambulance turned up shortly after, but sat at a distance to make sure it was safe to approach. They intubated the guy and carted him off to hospital. As usual in these situations, I never knew what happened after that. Does that count? I was once detained for several hours by the Secret Service for bringing a knife into a secure area during a presidential visit to my city. Long story short, the Secret Service fucked up and the back door of the restaurant I was working at was inside the secure area and I had no idea. Was walking home from work and got stopped for being where I wasn't supposed to be. I'm a consultant, and I frequently get asked this question during the first introduction meeting. I'm 51, and my life has been insane. Here's some of the things I say. I once won 2nd place in a Lego building contest. In Japan, I once performed oral surgery on myself. When I was 12, I lived at Disney World for 3 months. I've been to Siberia in the winter twice. I have 9 children and 7 grandchildren. So far, I got my first professional programming job when I was 19. I lived in South America for 7 years. I was once thrown off the French TGV bullet train for not having a reservation. I reserved a seat on the next train 20 minutes later. I was fired from Epcot Center for sinking a maintenance boat. I've been to the Storie, Japanese snow festival with all the ice sculptures and snow buildings. 2 weeks before my 19th birthday I had an ear infection, bronchitis, and sinusitis all at once. Went to urgent care to get medication, and they look in my ears. I had been sick with an ear infection for a while by that point, so there was a bit of a wax build-up in both ears. The ENT specialist came in to remove the wax impaction. One bit in my right ear was being particularly stubborn. It wasn't softening with the solution they had put in my ear canal. After much prying and irrigating, a 14-year-old corn kernel came out of my ear. I put it in there when I was 5 years old because I was bored at church. I freaked out and didn't tell anyone for a few days. Mom didn't see anything when she looked in my ear, so she just assumed it fell out. Flash forward 14 years. As I was sitting with the solution in my ear, I told my mom maybe it was the corn kernel. She said no way. I told the ENT specialist my suspicion when he came back. When the corn kernel came out, all he could say was, "Well, that's a first." For some reason I got very emotional and cried. My hearing didn't seem to be very affected by the corn kernel being there for 14 years. It looked black. but not decomposed. It was a purple kernel that was already dried out by the time I put it in my ear. TLDR, I was unaware I had a corn kernel stuck in my ear for 14 years. I had never met my dad and was told by my mom, Irish, that he was Italian. No one, including myself, ever believed that, and everyone always assumed I was Hispanic. I sent my DNA to Ancestry and it turns out my dad was 100% South Asian from Pakistan. I found my brother on Ancestry who told me who our dad was and found my dad on Facebook last year. We stayed in touch and I was planning to go see him this past February, but he died on Christmas Eve from COVID. I had also connected with a cousin who I visited and we still keep in touch. I was instrumental in getting the governor's speech to CBS News in time to get it on the 10 o'clock news. This was during the 3 Mile Island crisis. Had to get the speech from the Capitol building, drive it to the news station. I even got to sit in the House of Representatives. I was just a plain taxi driver, yet it wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't the store clerk. He gave me gas for the taxi when I didn't have any money on me. I had told him about what was going on and he trusted me. He is the real hero of the night. Yes, I made sure I paid him back. My name is Yasha Kajkira. I'm 33 years old. My house is in the northeast section of Moria, where all the villas are, and I am not married. I work as an employee for the KMU department stores, and I get home every day by 8 p.m. at the latest. I don't smoke, but I occasionally drink. I'm in bed by 11 p.m., and make sure I get 8 hours of sleep, no matter what. After having a glass of warm milk and doing about 20 minutes of stretches before going to bed, I usually have no problem sleeping until morning. Just like a baby, I wake up without any fatigue or stress in the morning. I was told there were no issues at my last checkup. I'm trying to explain that I'm a person who wishes to live a very quiet life. I take care not to trouble myself with any enemies, like winning and losing. That would cause me to lose sleep at night. That is how I deal with society, and I know that is what brings me happiness. Although, if I were to fight I wouldn't lose to anyone. My interesting fact is that I once left home and met a guy called Billy who was walking a similar direction to me. Then we saw Bob, but he was going the other way. On the way to where I was going, it was a really great day with the sun shining, the birds tweeting. I walked for hours that day. I passed the postman and the butcher's shop. Then I left town and walked along the river for a while to take a shortcut to where I needed to be. When I eventually arrived where I was going, I bought a goat. My father was a relentlessly self-improving boulangerie owner from Belgium with low-grade narcolepsy and a penchant for buggery. My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe with webbed feet. My father would womanize, he would drink, he would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts of being lazy, the sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. My childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon. Luge lessons. In the spring we'd make meat helmets. When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really. At the age of 12, I received my first scribe. At the age of 14, a Zoroastrian named Vilma ritualistically shaved my testicles. There really is nothing like a shore and scrotum. It's breathtaking. I suggest you try it. I have a fantasia, but I can write a story, poem, etc. about anything. I can look at a picture and come up with a story, whether it's happy, sad, etc. I've gotten inspiration just looking at a wooden bridge. A fantasia is when you don't have a mind's eye. So if you close your eyes and you can eventually see a rainbow, I can't do that. My mind is blank. I see nothing. A further example is I know what an apple looks like, but if I close my eyes I don't see an apple. I have several. My jaw was partially replaced by 2 metal plates. I once broke my arm masturbating. I once broke my leg playing PS 2006. My stats with most of the champions I play in League of Legends are way over the average for high elo players, and yet I have never left bronze. I've had dyslexia my whole life, but it went away when I got jumped, robbed and beaten by 4 guys. But it still flares up from time to time, except only when I'm writing, never when I'm reading. I lost my virginity at 9 years old. Inhales. I'm a lumberjack, blacksmith, woodcarver, architect, artist, sculptor, bladesmith, hardened outdoorsman, chef, archer, dead eye, kayaker, boat designer, freelance artist. I can sing, I can dance, I can feel micro scratches and errors and things. I can drive a manual car, know how to drive a skid steer. I haul 100+ kg oak logs around for fun. I design clothes. I'm a historical expert on Vikings, Highlanders, Canadians, etc. I am a hunter, and a dishwasher at a small local restaurant. And what's the cherry atop this pile? I'm 15 years old. So yeah, I'm a narcissist. The army needed us to fill out a unique statement form, in the case that we were captured and needed to identify ourselves. This is what I wrote, more or less. The first time I ejaculated I was about 10 or 11 years old, I guess. I used to take baths, and had all of my G.I. Joes in there with me, as well as some Star Wars figures left over from my younger days. Anyways, due to puberty, action figure playtime turned into masturbation playtime. I recall rubbing one out on multiple occasions that resulted in a dancing penis, but no ejaculate. Then, one day, I was in there having a big G.I. Joe war, and I started going at it. Imagine my surprise when the climax came, and semen came out of my penis. There was my G.I. Joe hovercraft and a bunch of action figures floating around in the water with me and my ill-gotten seed. So that was the first time I ever came. Now I just watch MILF porn and bust in a paper towel. But having snake eyes and firefly salute me from the deck of the hovercraft made my first time coming pretty special. At the ripe age of 19 I had my gallbladder removed. It was so full of stones it swelled up to be the same size as my liver. My doctor said he had never seen anything like it and he had no idea how I was still functioning and living my life normally. They had to stitch together 3 ultrasound images in order to see the entire thing. They also weren't sure if they could do it laparoscopically and were contemplating taking it out the old way, basically cutting the entire abdomen open. It was a wild ride and I ended up spending almost 2 weeks in the hospital over a routine outpatient procedure. I backpacked across the Rocky Mountains and to Vancouver solo. Not the wisest decision I ever made, but I did it. Through the King's Range. I think that's what it was called. Can't be bothered to look it up. South of Jasper, Alberta. Got to the other side in BC and kept going. Sometimes by road and sometimes not, until I eventually reached Vancouver a little over 2 months later. I wasn't in a hurry at all. I wanted to see the sights. If anything bad had happened while out in the wild I would have probably died though. Soloing it was a bad idea in hindsight. I did have a really close call with a grizzly on the BC side of the mountains. Fortunately we scared the crap out of each other by our surprise close encounter and both took off in opposite directions. That one could have killed me for sure, but otherwise it was mostly pleasant and I enjoyed it. Honestly, just lie. The absurdity of the lie will depend on how often you think you will be seeing this person again. My go-to lie is based on some truth, but I say I once got full VIP treatment at a club by saying I was Jerry Seinfeld's son. Funny enough, that story started out based on a lie after I told some drunk Scotsman that I was Jerry Seinfeld's son when he asked me if I knew anyone famous. I didn't really get VIP treatment, but I did take a few pictures with some people after he started bragging about how I was quasi-famous. I seem to have a superpower. I can tell when people are lying to me. It's like a gut feeling. Even small white lies. I don't call people out on it. Most of the time I feel like people lie because they desperately want to fit in, and as long as no one is getting hurt or cheated I let it go. It's like a tense vibe even from someone who seems calm. I have yet to be wrong. I feel bad for my kids. They know about it. However, it's saved me from heartache of cheating jerks along with friends. Unfortunately, in my teen years I ignored it a lot. Got into a bad crowd and was heavy taken advantage of. But I learned if I stay around someone who lies a lot I get stomach aches and headaches really bad. I don't talk about it at all though. People get weirded out and think I'm making it up or I'm just a crazy person.